Secretary of Defense's twins couldn't sleep until a female soldier changed everything. The night inside the Secretary of Defense's mansion was a battlefield of another kind. His twin daughters cried endlessly, their voices echoing through marble halls like alarms no order could silence. Doctors, nurses, and specialists had come and gone, but nothing could calm the restless house. Authority, so powerful on the world stage, was powerless here. That's when a young female soldier, stationed only to guard the perimeter, stepped forward with a gesture so simple, so human, that it shook the very foundation of power. Before we continue, take a second to subscribe, like, and comment. Your support brings more unforgettable stories like this to life. What begins as a tale of arrogance and frustration quickly transforms into something deeper. The clash between command and compassion, between orders and presence. This story will show you how strength can take many forms, and sometimes the quietest action carries the loudest impact. Stay with us until the end. You will see how one unexpected soldier changed not just a night of chaos, but the heart of the most powerful man in the room. The mansion held its breath, but the quiet was never full. It frayed at the edges with small, desperate sounds. 2 cribs faced the tall windows where the city blinked like static, and within them the Secretary of Defense's twins flailed, eyes glassy with exhaustion. Nurses rotated in shifts. Doctors left notes in clipped handwriting. White noise machines whispered like distant rain. Nothing worked. Down the hallway, staff rearranged blame like furniture. The father's footsteps measured the marble, precise, impatient, heavy enough to make everyone straighten their backs. Even the lamp seemed to stand at attention, yet the night would not obey. He had flown in a pediatric specialist from Boston that morning and dismissed her by afternoon. Next, he'd said, a verdict more than a word. The household moved around him as if he were a storm tracked on radar, predictable in path, catastrophic in force. Orders spilled from him in calm colors. Lower the lights, raise them, change formula, change bedding, change personnel. Each failure made the air colder. People stopped making eye contact and started making reports. The twins, unpersuaded, cried until their voices rasped and their chests shuddered in tiny earthquakes. At the threshold outside the nursery, a young military policewoman stood guard, Sergeant Maya Ross. Her duty was perimeter, not comfort. Protocol, not lullabies. She carried 12 years of service on a narrow frame, medals she kept in a drawer, and a grief she kept in her posture. Grief has a way of teaching you the shape of night. Maya watched patterns the experts missed. The subtle hitch and cry when one twin sought the other, the flinch when a door clicked, the calm that came whenever human breathing replaced machine humming. She memorized those data points the way she'd memorized patrol routes in Kandahar. The secretary's impatience reached for a target and found it in the nearest vulnerable thing: hope. He summarized the day's failures in a single sentence to his chief of staff. Competence is dying in this country. Staff nodded, a chorus of survival. A nurse set a metronome app to mimic a heartbeat. The twins startled harder. The head pediatrician suggested a brief separation to reset stimuli. The father approved with a sharp nod that felt like a gavel. Crib A went to the study. Crib B stayed in the nursery. The house split its worry in two and somehow made it bigger. Maya asked for permission to close the hallway door softly, to cut the corridor draft. The chief of staff waved her off. Optics over oxygen. She did it anyway, easing the latch until the click was a whisper, the crying dulled by a single shade, as if the room exhaled for first time tonight. No one noticed except Maya and the smallest twin, whose fists unclenched for 3 seconds before the storm returned. 3 seconds can be a thesis when everyone else is quoting headlines. Maya logged inside. Quiet helps, but not enough. The problem is not only sound. The secretary re-entered, carrying authority like body heat. "We are not victims of circumstance," he said, to the room and to himself. "Fix it." A nurse produced a new swaddle, firmer, neater. The baby arched away as if from a memory. Maya watched the way the child's gaze hunted empty air, a searching that felt like absence in the shape of a person. She remembered barracks nights after deployment, when silence was too loud without her mother's voice. Memory has weight. It can be heavier than armor. She adjusted her stance, counting breaths, counting cries, counting gaps. Across the crib, a framed photograph caught her eye. The twins' late mother, laughing with her head tilted, sunlight pooling on her shoulder. The image faced the door, not the babies. It meant the adults needed reminding more than the children did. Maya pictured that sunlit laugh rotated 90 degrees, place where tiny eyes could meet it. She imagined scent fabric, the soft human geography of safety. In war zones, she'd learned that comfort is tactical. If a village trusts the patrol, the road stays quiet. If a child trusts the room, the night might cooperate. Trust is the first perimeter. The house flickered with another plan. White noise plus weighted blanket plus schedule revision. Senior staff debated as if drafting a policy memo. Maya hovered at the border of permission. Her badge granted access to doors, not decisions, but the data in her bones outvoted the organizational chart. She took one small step closer to the crib, then another, until the twins' cries braided into one sound in her chest. The older twins' hand searched, found nothing, and shook with the effort. That was when Maya realized the room was full of expertise and empty of heartbeat. She cleared her throat once, a small sound with the courage of a flare. "Sir," she said, voice steady but low, "I think the babies are missing something we haven't tried." The secretary's head turned, a machine locating an unexpected signal. Around him, faces tightened. The guard has opinions now? Protocol said be quiet. Conscience said be useful. The twins cried harder, as if to vote. The secretary's eyes narrowed, measuring insolence and outcomes. He did not answer. Maya held the silence like a line she refused to drop. Something shifted. If not his mind, then the room's center gravity. The secretary's silence after Maya's words stretched like wire pulled too tight. Staff exchange looked sharp enough to cut skin. A soldier speaking out of turn was breach, not suggestion. "Stay in your post," he ordered. Each syllable measured, but his eyes lingered longer than his tone admitted. Maya nodded once, stepping back, but the sound of the twins' cries built again like a tide breaking against stone. It became impossible to ignore that expertise had failed, and only defiance had offered 3 seconds of relief. Those seconds haunted the room louder than the infant's screams. Another attempt followed, lavender oils, diffusers hissing perfume into the stale air. The twins writhed harder, lungs redlining. The staff physician whispered, "Sir, maybe sedation," but stopped when the secretary's gaze drilled into him. Power thrives on control, and control was dissolving like paper in rain. The marble corridors seemed to shrink around the crying, funneling it back toward everyone's nerves. Maya clenched her fists, remembering Afghanistan nights when soldiers begged for silence in villages where babies cried through gunfire. Quiet was survival then. Quiet was mercy now. The difference was only uniform. The secretary slammed his hand against the crib rail. Startling nurses. "I don't want theories. I want solutions." His voice cracked with something dangerously close to despair, but no one dared name it. The twins screamed harder, feeding off his fury. Power had no lullaby, no rhythm soft enough to bridge the void left by their mother. Maya saw the tremor in his hand, disguised as authority, and knew she was watching a man drown while pretending to swim. Still, authority clung to him like armor, shiny but heavy, dragging him deeper each second. Maya considered retreat. Protocol screamed at her to vanish into uniform anonymity. Yet the twins' cries pierced deeper, pressing memories of nights in an orphanage where silence was paid for with exhaustion, not comfort. She remembered a volunteer who had once hummed a tune. It wasn't medical, it wasn't official, but it felt like oxygen. That memory rose now like an order written in her blood. She drew a slow breath, stepping closer. Staff noticed, eyes wide, whispers forming a chain reaction. Authority was the loudest thing in the room, until conscience walked forward in boots. The secretary spun toward her, incredulity weaponized. "Sergeant, did you not hear me?" Maya saluted, then lowered her hand slowly. "I heard you, sir. I also hear them." Her voice was calm, anchored, steady in ways as wasn't, for a heartbeat. The room became a courtroom, verdict hanging in the air. Nurses held their breath, as if waiting for an explosion. Instead, A fissure opened in the certainty of power, the possibility that a soldier could know what a father did not. That possibility alone was mutiny to his pride. A nurse whispered. She calmed them once. It slipped like contraband through silence, igniting suspicion and curiosity. The secretary's glare silenced her instantly, but seeds sprouted in every gaze. Authority was no longer unanimous. There was division in the ranks, small but widening. Maya took another step toward the crib, heartbeat pounding in her ears. The twins shifted, their cries faltering for a fraction, sensing nearness. The staff leaned forward unconsciously, magnetized by the chance that the impossible might repeat. That half-second of hope stretched into prophecy. The secretary's jaw locked. "If you disobey me again, you will be court-martialed." The threat echoed like a gavel, final and unyielding. Yet Maya's eyes softened, not hardened. She bent slightly, hands hovering just above the crib rail, not touching, just offering presence. The cries stuttered, one twin whimpering instead of wailing. The room froze. The contradiction was unbearable. His authority had promised order, yet her defiance delivered peace. This paradox split the night in two. Which side would win? That question pulsed louder than the cries now fading to whimpers. Maya let the threat hang and chose a smaller law. A breath in, a breath out, the pace a heartbeat would choose. She didn't touch the babies yet. Presence first, contact later. She hummed a low, almost not their tone she'd learned from her mother, a steady river under noise. The nearest twins' eyes fluttered. A nurse's hand rose to her mouth, as if stopping a shout that might break the spell. The secretary's gaze sharpened to a blade. "Enough," he said, but the word arrived softer than planned. The room heard the crack in it and remembered it. She asked for the photograph. "Turn it toward them." No one moved. The chief of staff hesitated, then obeyed, the frame scraping wood as it rotated to face the cribs. The twins blinked at their mother's smile, the familiar geometry of face they barely knew but somehow trusted. Their cries stumbled, tripped, and steadied into breaths. Maya lowered her voice further, humming a cadence soldiers use on night marches, a rhythm that carries weight without adding noise. The nurses leaned closer. Power felt suddenly offstage. Care stood under the lights and began its opening line. The secretary flinched at the mention of the mother by proxy. Grief broke ranks inside his eyes. He stepped nearer, then caught himself, as if distance might keep him in command. "You're making promises you can't keep," he said, but the twins' answer was a longer calm between whimpers. Maya finally reached into her pocket and took out a small, clean square of olive fabric, a spare from her uniform, warm from her palm. "Send us a map," she whispered, mostly to the babies. "It tells you where home is." She laid the cloth on the crib sheet, like a flag of truce. One twin threaded tiny fingers into the fabric and clung. The other rolled toward the humming and stilled. Nurses stared at the clock, measuring miracle in seconds, daring time argue. The chief pediatrician cleared his throat, voice careful. "Sir, there's evidence infants bond to consistent breath and scent patterns after maternal loss." The secretary's stare told him to vanish, but the data hung in the air like a bridge no one wished to burn. Maya adjusted the cloth an inch, then arranged a photograph where eyes would find it without effort. Every movement said, "I see you, little one." The house listened. Even the climate system seemed to dim its own insistence. Maya asked for the hallway lights to be lowered 2 degrees, not more, not less, so shadows softened into edges the twins' nervous systems could recognize. She requested shoes off at the threshold. No clicks, no snaps. Language reduced to whispers or nods. Staff followed before permission was granted. Because relief recruits quickly. One nurse began to cry quietly, grief sneaking up through gratitude. Maya kept humming, letting the tune carry the room's fear until it thinned into focus. The air tasted less like panic, more like rain. Then a radio crackled, sharp, metallic, cruelly timed. The younger twin jolted. The fragile calm shattered into alarms. The secretary seized on a rupture, like proof. "You see? This is sentiment, not solution." He ordered the cloth removed. The staff froze, hope faltering. Maya looked up, eyes steady. With respect, sir, we just learned the perimeter of their piece and its breach. She clicked the radio to silent, then positioned herself between the crib and the door, body as baffled, voice as metronome. The crying staggered, then fell into softer sobs. Data reclaimed ground inch by inch. Out, he said, pointing to Maya. The word hit the floor like a verdict. She didn't move. Court-martial me if you must, she answered, not defiant so much as faithful to what was saving the children. But if you remove me now, you'll remove the only consistent cadence they've recognized tonight. The twins' breathing synchronized, a fragile duet. The room waited for thunder. Instead, a quieter weather arrived. The reality that command is not the same as control. The secretary's hand dropped from the air. His silence widened, not empty, but full of argument losing its footing. A small, practical miracle sealed the moment. The older twin yawned, an open flower trust, and drifted into the slack-jawed sleep only exhausted infants know. The other followed, seconds later, chasing the sound of Maya's humming like a trail home. The nurses looked to the secretary, braced for reversal, for anger, for punishment dressed as order. He stared at his daughters, as if seeing a language he didn't speak being translated in front of him. The room exhaled. Then his jaw tense again, a last stand gathering in his voice. "Remove the soldier," he said, and the door handles rattled. The order to remove Maya hovered in the air, but no one moved. Nurses hesitated. The chief of staff avoided the secretary's eyes, and silence felt like rebellion. The twins stirred, sensing the tension like animals before a storm. Maya remained steady, her hand lightly resting on the crib rail. "Sir," she said, voice low but unshaken, "you can command me, but you cannot command them. They've chosen what soothes them." Her words were not challenge, but truth spoken plainly, yet in that plainness lay the sharpest mutiny. The twins whimpered, then sighed back toward sleep, proof stamped in breath. The secretary's face darkened. "You think you understand more than me? In my house? With my children?" His tone was thunder, but the strike never landed. His daughter's eyelids fluttered, the calm tenuous but real. Maya's next move was small but seismic. She drew the cloth higher across one twin's chest, creating a cocoon of scent and rhythm. A hush fell as the baby stilled again. It was undeniable. Staff who once obeyed authority, without question now obeyed results. And results wore boots and a badge, not medals and stars. That shift cracked the marble of power beneath his feet. He stepped forward, towering, but the tower leaned. "You will answer for this," he growled, but his eyes flickered to the photograph, to the fragile serenity painted across his daughters' faces. For the first time, the fear in the room belonged to him. He feared irrelevance. He feared being the only one in command, yet the least capable of bringing peace. Maya met his stare, not with defiance, but with quiet steadiness. It was the look of someone who had buried comrades and still learned to sing. That look unsettled him more than any shouted protest could have. A sudden crash from the corridor, the sound of a dropped tray, pierced a fragile balance. The twins startled awake, cries rising like alarms again. The secretary's rage reignited. "Enough! She's out now." Guards at the door moved at last, closing distance. Maya had seconds. She leaned closer to the babies, whispering words not meant for anyone else. "I know the dark, and I'll stand in it with you." She began to hum again, louder this time, drawing the cries downward like a tide. The guards hesitated, torn between orders and the undeniable effect unfolding before them. One guard whispered, "Sir, they're coming." It was a dangerous thing to say, a rope thrown toward mutiny. But the evidence was there. Two infants sinking back into exhausted quiet, drawn to the rhythm Maya carried. The secretary's hand shook at his side, a tremor no one was meant to see. His pride screamed for removal, but reality screamed louder. His daughters needed what he could not give. He clenched his fists, caught between role and fatherhood, between reputation and truth. The staff watched breathless, knowing the next command could fracture the house in two. Maya remained where she was, a sentinel in uniform, the paradox of obedience and defiance. "Sir, punish me later if you must," she said, "but let them rest now." Her words wrapped the room in logic too human to dismiss. The twins' breathing slowed again, synchronized to her presence. For the first time all night, silence was not a vacuum, but a bomb. That silence accused him louder than any soldier's words. He stood suspended in it, caught in the most dangerous ambush of all, compassion proving stronger than command. The secretary's breath came ragged, more battlefield than nursery. Every inhale a negotiation between rage and recognition. His voice faltered before it formed. So he said nothing, letting silence weigh heavier than orders. Maya filled that silence with song, low and steady, a rhythm strong enough to guide soldiers home, gentle enough to anchor infants. Each note bent the room toward her, making walls softer, lights warmer, grief less sharp. The staff, once satellites orbiting authority, now orbited her cadence. It was a coup not of violence but of trust, unfolding in plain sight. The guards froze mid-step, unwilling to break the spell. One twin's hand clutched the cloth tighter, as if claiming it. The other turned toward Maya's voice, breaths deepening into sleep surrender. A nurse whispered, "It's working," then covered her mouth as if the words were contraband. The secretary heard, shoulders stiffening, jaw clamped. He wanted to crush the moment, but the evidence glared back at him in lullaby breaths. His pride threatened collapse under the weight of undeniable truth. Control was not the cure. Humility might be, but humility had never been his uniform. He bent forward at last, close enough to see his daughter's faces slack with rest, their lashes damp but still. His reflection glimmered in their half-closed eyes. Not the man of power, but the father they had been waiting for. It undid him. His hand hovered above the crib rail, trembling, unsure whether to touch or retreat. Maya saw the quake and spoke softly. "They don't need you to command, sir. They need you to stay." The words punctured armor, revealing flesh beneath. His pride screamed mutiny, yet his heart whispered surrender. A sharp cough cracked the stillness, an aide at the door, unthinking, disruptive. The twins stirred, and for a second it seemed the fragile peace would shatter again. The secretary's hand finally landed on the crib rail, palm steadying, voice hushed. "It's all right. Father's here." The words tasted foreign, and used muscles forming them. But the baby sighed and stilled, comforted not by command, but by presence. Gasps broke across the room, disbelief turning into awe. For the first time, he had chosen fatherhood over office, and the house bore witness. The transformation wasn't complete. Not yet. He pulled back too quickly, afraid of appearing weak. His eyes darting to see if anyone had noticed his break in posture. They had. Everyone had. Staff stood taller, not because of him, but because hope had just proven possible. Maya remained by the crib, not claiming victory, but holding space. The secretary straightened, face hardening again, but no one believed the mask anymore. They had seen the fissure, and through it, something true. The most dangerous thing for a man of power is when truth looks kinder than authority. He cleared his throat, retreating behind ritual. "This never leaves this room," he ordered, voice regaining its edge. But it was too late. Every soul present carried the scene like scripture. Maya saluted without flinching, though her eyes said what words could not. The world had changed, and not even his silence could erase it. The twins, now breathing evenly, prove her right with every rise and fall of their tiny chests. For once, victory belonged not to the loudest command, but to the quietest gesture, and that victory would echo longer than any decree. The mansion exhaled its first honest quiet in days. Sleep curled around the twins like a protective veil, each breath a reminder that peace was possible. Staff exchanged glances, not daring to smile too openly, but relief spread in the corners of their eyes. The secretary stood rigid, tried to reclaim authority through posture alone, yet even he felt the shift in the air. His house had witnessed a victory greater than his medals could claim. It was not his order that secured it, but the compassion of the soldier he had nearly dismissed. Authority cracked. Humanity spoke louder. Maya remained at her post, though her presence no longer looked like defiance. It looked like protection. She did not gloat nor seek recognition. She let the silence breathe, respecting the fragility of the moment. The cloth still lay on the crib, a relic of survival, and the photographed face of children, a promise they were not alone. The staff, once bound by fear of their employer's wrath, now shared silent loyalty to her action. They had seen what mattered, and in that moment, they knew hierarchy had shifted, not by rebellion but by truth. The secretary's throat tightened as he watched his daughter sleep, realizing his authority had failed where love succeeded. He wanted to speak, to claim some portion of the victory, but words stuck like stones. Instead, he turned toward Maya, his voice quieter than any command before. "You may stay?" It wasn't an order. It was permission wrapped in gratitude, though he disguised it with formality. Those who heard it knew its meaning. For the first time, he had bent, not to an enemy, not to politics, but to a soldier's compassion. Rumors would never leave the mansion walls, at least not officially. Yet every person present carried a memory, like a vow. They would remember the night power bowed to gentleness. Maya, once invisible in uniform, now stood as proof that unseen hands can cradle the future more securely than iron fists. The secretary returned to his office, mask intact, but his footsteps were slower. He had been forced to face what no battlefield ever had. That control could not manufacture rest, and strength was found in surrender. Days later, when the twins stirred at night, staff no longer panicked. They looked to Maya first, trusting the quiet authority she carried. Her humming became the rhythm of the house, the unseen anthem of survival. Even the secretary paused at doorways to listen, though he never admitted it. In his silence, there was reluctant respect, and perhaps something deeper he could not name. For the first time, the weight of command felt lighter, because someone else had shown him how to carry it differently. The reward was not medals or applause, but 2 infants sleeping soundly, finding peace in a world that had failed them once already. Their tiny breaths testified to the soldier who gave more than duty, who gave presence. The secretary's pride still flared, but beneath it flickered gratitude he could not extinguish. Maya never sought thanks. Her victory was already written in the lull of night, where cries had turned into dreams. And those who bore witness would never forget which hand steadied the chaos. What lingered was the image of a man used commanding armies, standing powerless before 2 infants, and the soldier who showed him that strength wears many forms. The audience of this story carries away not only the suspense, but the satisfaction of seeing arrogance undone by humility. It is an emotional reward greater than punishment. Transformation, authority softened, innocence defended, and justice delivered through compassion. That balance, once thought impossible, became undeniable, and once witnessed, it could not be unseen. Final analysis. The conclusion closes every thread. Twins at peace, secretary humbled, Maya vindicated without gloating. Emotional peaks arrive with the secretary's whispered concession and the image of him listening at doorways. The mini cliffhanger resolves into a full reward. Arrogance yields to humanity. No redundancies remain. Each beat serves a narrative's climax and resolution. The emotional payoff surpasses expectations, leaving viewers with a sense of justice, transformation, and quiet triumph. If this story moved you, subscribe now and join us for more tales where arrogance meets unexpected justice. Like, comment, and share your thoughts. Your voice matters here. And if you want to support this channel so we can continue bringing powerful stories to life, consider becoming a member. More unforgettable revelations are on the way. Don't miss the next one.